browser. I mean, I always like to move the room, but I cannot do that because now I have a camera here for the video conference, right? In Skype. No, I don't know, Skype is just, and okay. So okay, first of all, yeah, good to have you here. And the idea here is just to present something about what's going on, what happened, what's going on right now, which is the challenge for the beef production in what we call the Rio de la Plata grasslands of the Pampas biome, right? That, let me see. Okay, this is more or less, oh, it's moving here, but not here. Let me see what happened. How do I move this? Okay, right now, right? Just to put it in context, the region, right? The what we call the Rio de la Plata grasslands, and as a synonym, the Pampas biome is a region has 1 million square kilometers, that about 100 million hectares, or if you wish, 386,000 square miles, more or less, or 245 million acres. I got to tell you, just translating this for you. 62% of the Pampas biome correspond to the Argentinian Pampas that you see, number one, right? That have a land of 6 provinces. The whole territory of Uruguay, this is number 2, and the south part of the Rio Grande do Sul state of Brazil, right? This is the region that we are talking about in this. So, you know, the history of the livestock production in Uruguay is quite old in Latin American terms, right? And in the last 400 years, the livestock has been raising, I mean, in the Pampas region. In the case of Uruguay, right, the cattle introduction by Europeans has preceded any European settlement. And right now, just to give you an idea, in Uruguay, we are 3.5 million people, and we have 12 million bovine cattle, so we have 3 and something cows per person, right? And this comes from the 16th century, when prior to 1780, some chronicles said the number of cattle, bovine cattle in the region in about 48 million heads, right? After that, it started declining because of the exploitation of the cattle, and then now it's going back to equilibrium. What we have here in the case of Uruguay is the livestock in the last 180 years, right? And it has been rising until getting some stability right now. Since 1935 to 2002, now we have year-to-year numbers, right? The average more or less has been 13.1 million heads, more or less, that is stabilized, right? We see if we just take the 21st century, and we see, I mean, the average is just 13.2, right? And becoming stable. And the blue line is just the bovine cattle, and the green line is what we call bovine equivalent. That is adding the number of sheep divided by 5, so roughly, okay, just to give you an idea, that he stabilized it around 12 to 13 million. If you take the livestock area in the Pampas in numbers of 2019, you see more or less that we are talking about the total of 112 million acres, right? Sorry, was sometimes I have problems talking to acres, right? Of which about 89 million are just native pastures, still native pastures. And from this area, around 23 million acres of seeded pastures, okay, that we plant, white clover, red clover, fescue, all this stuff. So you see that the average proportion of native over total pastures is about 80% in the whole area. Some oscillations, and the total bovine herd right now is about close to 60 million heads in that area. Of course, it does not comprise. It's not in case of Argentina and Brazil. It's just part of their cattle production, right? You sum up the rest of Argentina, the rest of Brazil, you go to 250 probably million heads. But I'm talking just about the Pampas biome, right? And you see with the stocking rate, if you look at that in the last row in terms of acres, we are about 0.6, let's say, or 0.5, 0.6 heads per acre of land. So this is the beef cattle production right now in that area, right? But that you see that beef exports of the whole region is about $3.8 billion, right? From this area, and where in Brazil is most part of this biome, Pampas biome is right now with crops. So the cattle, that's why you see that Brazil, that is the biggest one, has a small number of cattle in the Pampas biome, right? So this is a picture that shows you more or less the change in land use in the areas from year 2000 to 2019. You see that, I mean, the yellow, right? The yellow color is agricultural crops, commercial crops. The kind of brown here is not exactly the same color, but it's brownish or something, is native pastures. And when you see that Uruguay still has the greatest proportion of native pastures in the Pampas biome. The brown is afforestation, right? This is seeded trees, right? And you see, the thing is that the impact of livestock production has been minor, relatively minor, if you compare with the changes in land use due to crop agriculture, right? And this is in Spanish. This is just a dashboard that this Pampas biome gives you, but they didn't have a version in English. But then that you can just see some numbers, have some better idea. I won't discuss that, but it's the presentation that you will have. But then, what's our challenge, right? And the idea in the area was the idea was, okay, what we're going to do with cattle production now that there are a lot of people challenging, right, beef production for different reasons, right? Uruguay was in 2014 chosen as the first study case. It was what's called the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, right? That was set up just to see how to comply with the post-2015 goals, development goals by the UN, right? So we have to draw and implement practical solutions for the 2015 agenda, right? So then we set up a Uruguay team that was our team in the National Agricultural Research Institute and a team from the Ministry of Agriculture. We worked together in this initiative. And the idea was to implement what we call the sustainable intensification of the beef sector. That could be consistent with several global objectives. Why sustainable intensive? Because intensification, because we make a living on that. The importance of livestock production, I will say for Uruguay that is completely is the first export product, but also for a good part of Brazil and Argentina is enormous. So we just cannot, we cannot just diminish that, because then we will hurt our people. So it's something that we're trying to put in any occasion that we have, as this one, just to make a call about that, right? But then we had a really good experience. We studied that. I will show you the results. And the Uruguay experience was adopted as a model for other studies for the United Nations, right? What was the idea? On the left, you have the current situation in 2014, like when we started with this project. The idea was, okay, without increasing the cattle grazing area, and taking more or less in 11, 12 million hectares in this case, or 27,000 million acres, the idea was, okay, how do we improve the production per acre, per hectare, right, in order to, right, to improve the behavior of our systems. And the idea, okay, it is impossible in our lands, it is impossible just to go to a really high production just with the native pastures. You need some improvement. That improvement does not mean just to plow the area and substitute the covers, right? It's just the idea is introducing high quality species into the soils and try to improve the whole system. So in 2014 we had 15.4% of improved pastures. The idea was go to 30%. Okay, as we have a seasonal production of the grasslands and we have lack of forage in winter time, we have to supplement with some grain or some minerals, some strategic food, right? The cattle, even just for avoiding them to lose weight. Okay, I won't say just for fattening. So the idea was, okay, to increase the current 17 pounds per acre to 33, more or less doubling the supplementation, right? And then, okay, invest in the trees for say shadow is shelters, right, and water and fencing, right, just to make a more intensive use of the pastures. And then with this idea, we will be able to improve, for example, some coefficients like winning rates, the age of mating, right, and the age of slaughter, right. With this in mind, okay, we used a simulation model that now we are in 2022, and we see that we are going pretty much, okay. The idea is that we can improve the beef production in the live weight from around 90 to 110 and 115 pounds per acre, right? And then increase the production, increase the imports, right? Increase the profits, of course, and in a sustainable way, while keeping control some key variables that have to be with the environment and whatever, right? So, for example, you will see, I won't discuss all these numbers, but we just estimated what happened with the carbon footprint, nitrogen losses, biodiversity losses, whatever. And we had these numbers, right? Then at the end, I show you this the paper, right? That says that. And take care with the methane emissions. Because what is going on right now? You see that in 2006, the FAO released a document that almost saying that the cows were guilty, completely guilty for the warming effects, right? The science after that started to really, the numbers right now are declining because it's not what they say at the moment. They have to go down because of the different studies. And then right now, livestock explain globally, livestock explain about 5.8% or less of global emissions, right? Of course, more research is needed, and particularly regarding two things: methane emissions and carbon sequestration by pastures, something that are not really, there are some information, right? Different information, but still not really settled by science, right? These are more things that we have to do. So, and if you see just what means the Pampas biome, here you have all Argentina, all Brazil, and Uruguay. What are the emissions? And the agricultural emissions in this country are just 2.6% of total global emissions. So, I mean, in terms of really improving the health of the planet, is not really the problem here, right? And the other thing that we are questioning, for example, in Uruguay, that you have a constant, almost constant stable herd, right? You have at the same time the cattle is emitting methane that has a lifespan of about 12 to 15 years, and then is transformed again to CO2 that is enteric CO2. It was CO2 that was really in the atmosphere, was captured, or the cycle and goes down, goes again free. So we are not in, I mean, our livestock is not really increasing the CO2 of the planet. It's not from fossil fuels, right? That this is really the big issue, right? And we made also our estimations about the emissions, and the emissions that we are analyzing are different of the emissions that the IPCC is releasing. Why? Because they consider, for example, that any cattle eats up to 3% of their live weight, and we established in Uruguay barely the cattle eats 2%. Right, because of the restrictions of the native pastures, quality, or whatever. So the emissions in this case are just not what they are saying. So, concluding, right, the ideas. You will have the presentation then to see the numbers that I just jumped. The Pampas beyond, also known as the Rio de la Plata Grandes grasslands, as I say, comprises an area of approximately 386,000 square miles. Is about 1.5 times the size of Texas, right? Introduced in the 16th century, cattle have been part of the system, of the ecosystem for the last 400 years, even preceding European settlement, in the case of Uruguay. With a commercial herds of some 60 million heads, beef cattle system are one of the pillars of the region in economic and social terms. The alleged effects of livestock global warming and the environment are not settled by any means, right? And consensus is not the same thing that evidence, right? Not because a lot of people is claiming that is going to be true. It's really need evidence, and science still has a work to do in this matter. For us, I mean, reducing livestock will have unforeseen economic and social consequences and costs, because, as I say, we make a living on that. There are millions of people in that region that really live on that, on that business. And the Uruguay study case demonstrated that a development strategy based on the idea of sustainable intensification that takes care of the environment is the only feasible and desirable solution for us. And with this, it's just These are some of the work mentioned in the presentation. And this is like the Uruguayan landscape and the Pampas biome looks like, right? Thank you very much. You have my email and I think, and thank you very much. Just this.
We have time for a couple of questions.
Yeah, really interesting. I was wondering if you could talk about some of the incentives and policies that have helped to move along the adoption of sustainable investigation.
It's a very good question. One of the things that we learn with experience is you cannot just do mandatory things that have a cost and don't have any opportunity. So the idea is that, for example, some of the, for example, just planting trees for shadow, right, and things is something that benefits the cattleman. So the idea is, okay, we can help you out, just giving facilities for doing that, or for example, looking for water, improving the quality of water, things like that. But you will be the winners. You have to make a profit on that. In other way, we have a history of failed projects because you make the projects, try to induce farmers to do something, and when the intervention is finished, everything goes again to the same place. So in this case, we say no. This is so. The idea is in this project, we just were meeting and showing this to the farmers, as different farmers associations, to see them engage. Of course, some are more reluctant, some are more problems to improve, right? But we think that we are doing it in a way.
So thanks for the great presentation. The sustainable defense stage, how did it affect the competitiveness of Uruguay? You mentioned there like 3 times right?
Yeah.
But there was only like within Uruguay. And how affected competitiveness, market structure for the, I know how competitive it is so far.
Yeah. I mean, in this project, we also get in contact with the people from Argentina and Brazil. We have very close relationships in our institution, that INEA, with the INTA of Argentina, with the Embrapa in Brazil, that are the national research. And there is the idea is we cannot just profit one over the other. We need a strong livestock production in the whole area. It's not just for us. For example, if something goes bad in Argentina and Brazil, we can sometimes have some benefits in the short time, but not in the meantime. So the idea, of course, this project was done in Uruguay, and we're trying to get some spillover to the region, and with the scientists of Brazil and Argentina. It does not mean that everything will go perfect, have some problems, but we don't care. I think that the idea, or we cannot save ourselves, and we are just a small part of the market, of the supply market. So just for us, it's not really a business at the long term. I don't know if you answered. Yeah.
So thanks for the presentation. So question I have about land use change in Uruguay. You talked about how it seems like mostly on rangeland there hasn't been too much change, but there has on cropland.
Yeah, we have croplands.
Okay, so is the cropland, just to clarify, is that supporting the livestock industry? Like, are they growing more soybeans?
No, because in Uruguay, you cannot just go and plant soybeans every year. There's a policy, a very old policy in Uruguay, that all the crop agriculture has to go on rotation. Okay, rotation of different crops and with pastures. And so, for example, suppose I'm the owner of the land, and then they have some people that want to plant in my right soybeans, right? He has to present to the ministry a project. Of course, this may change because it has to be flexible enough because the markets or whatever. But then they're in the contracts that the people, that the landowners make with the, when they are not the owners of the land, with the agriculture, they have to specify when, how they are gonna let the land after the rotation. Yeah, this is something that Uruguay, you just cannot do rice or soy with that. You have to rotate.
We have to go to the next presentation. If you want to, if you have one follow-up question.
Yes.
At the end, if you may have some time, we may not be all the 90 minutes, so we want to make sure that everybody get a chance to do that. Next presenter is from Costa Rica. And then we will-
Thank you, Jose. Well, I work for CATI, and we do research and extension in Latin America. I do work more from Mexico up to the Caribbean, going through Panama. And to do that, when Jose and we spoke about it, so he told me the Latin America. So, but when I started reviewing all the NDCs, the mitigation commitment for each country, and then the sustainable strategy of livestock, and then I had to go to the NAMA, it became sustainable. So I went from Mexico to the Caribbean. So South America, we have that pending, Jose. Okay, so as just history here, most countries in Latin America, we have committed to reduce emissions, right? By 2030. And the range from Mexico up to the Caribbean, the commitment we have made ranges from 11 to 41, depending on the country. But if you read closely, the commitment that we did in Central America, Mesoamerica, the Caribbean, in the entire world, it is not enough to limit global warming up to 1.5. According to a report that I read, is right now the emissions with the commitment that we have already, we're gonna reach a limit of 2.4. For that reason, the UN framework for climate change, they are requesting all the countries to review their NDC in order to review the calculation, review the approach to see if they can increase even further their ambitions. But, you know, it takes time, right? Because now they are planning to committing to government, and then the implementation, how long it will take, right? is saying. So I went through all these documents, and I found that most countries in Mesoamerica and the Caribbean, they have updated their NDC. They had their NDC in 2016. They updated in 2020, 2021 was the deadline in November, I remember. And some countries gave the NDC later. But anyway, everybody did update. And some of them increased their ambitions, okay? So which is good, right? For example, Honduras, before their commitment, its commitment was 14%, they increased to 60%. Nicaragua, they don't have a number, Jose. So, but they do want to increase their ambition on renewable energy and reduce deforestation. That is so most of them increased, but Mexico didn't. And the climate change watcher criticized a lot their NDC because they even reduced their ambitions. So anyway, so if you see Mexico, I want you to see the two last column. You have unconditional and conditional. That is something interesting that is happening in Latin America, because you as a country, you can say, the Dominican Republic, for example, they said, I don't have the budget to reduce emission with my budget. So I can commit only 7% with my own funding. However, if you give me financing through that climate finance initiative, so I can reach up to 27%. And the same thing was Mexico, right? 22% I can do with my own budget, 36%. Belize, they do not differentiate. Guatemala, 11, 22, and so on. Costa Rica, they are unconditionally committing to reduce their emission. If you see, their target is compared to 2012, to the baseline of 2012, and all the countries are using the baseline of 2030 to reduce that emission. So in that sense, Costa Rica is well ahead. And according to the mitigation potential they have, all the countries are above to their compatibility with the global warming limit is above 2, and Costa Rica is below 2. So that is good in that sense. All right, so moving on, livestock, as you know, is a significant greenhouse contributor. However, it is part of the solution, as Bruno was saying, right? Livestock is part of the solution as well. And intensification is one of the reasons, as he was mentioning. Herbert, I know him. So many people in Latin America are confused about the 14.5% that his paper says. That one includes all the livestock, including pigs, and the value chain. But people only think it is cattle because in Spanish, ganado, livestock is, so people think it is only cattle, right? So, and the problem is we have that most of the Central America is extensive livestock, which offer opportunity, right? If you see when, according to those papers, right, the expansion of the cattle production due to demand and all those, so they demonstrated that around 26% of the losses in forest cover was because of livestock expansion and the crops. In Honduras, in Catacama, a study that we did, we found that because 50% of deforestation is because of livestock. That's because Catacama in Honduras is important in. So moving on well, as you know, governments in Mesoamerica and Caribbean, all of them have included the livestock as a key sector to achieve their mitigation goal. I'm gonna explain more about it. And if you see the numbers, if we add up all the numbers from Mexico up to the Caribbean, it's around 100 million head of cattle that we have there. And it support a lot of people, 2 million people directly and indirectly, a lot more. So I got this graph. So in here, what is interesting is how then can we achieve mitigation and adaptation, mitigation through livestock, right? Which intervention do we have to do? Which technology practices do we have to implement? Most of, in general, one way that we justify is by saying avoid deforestation. For example, if I can justify, I'm gonna make that project, I'm gonna request zero deforestation in that area. If no, I don't give you the incentive. So that is one way of demonstrating mitigation avoidance, emission avoidance by deforestation. And range management is also important because when you have greater composition, you have more feed available, right? But that contribute to carbon sequestration, but also it improve productivity because you have more availability even for dry season to irrigation as well. Also, you can go and implement substitute high, let's say, carbon, improve energy efficiencies, for example. Something that is very important and we concentrate a lot in the region is feed quality, herd structure, animal genetic, animal health, and manure management, because all of them help you increase in productivity, but at the same time, it helps you to reduce the carbon intensity, which is important for the mitigation matter, and improve resilience. Something that we focus a lot in to do a project and to implement the project is that, okay, so if we have a project, we are promoting all those possible interventions, we have to encourage farmers to diversify. But before that, we have to intensify, right? Water management is important. So if you do not have your extension program with technical capacity, financial mechanism, incentive, if you do not work win the market at the same time. If you do not provide incentive, financial mechanism, and if you don't work with the government for changing policies, you're gonna revert back what you were saying, Bruno, right? So that it's very important because the donors, when you write grants about livestock, they want you to show them that the change that you're making is not reversible. And the only way you can make that not reversible is by aligning all those elements with with the technology adoption. Okay, so when I was reviewing all the NDC of those countries, I found that most countries are focusing on silvopastoral system adoption. That is basically to have trees in the farm in different arrangement and different ways. But so if we compare across countries, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and Honduras in Mesoamerica are the ones that are more advanced in regard to technology for low carbon, for mitigation. Indeed, Guatemala and Costa Rica are the only ones that have a national strategy for low carbon, in which they said how to implement over time the decarbonization process of the livestock. Also, Costa Rica and Honduras, when you see the list of technologies they have in their NDC, in their NAMAS programs, is way more structured than the other countries. And there is a concern that I want to highlight here, which I think is important. I will learn that by experience. So when we are working with the governments that a branch that quantify the emissions, so they always complain that farmers, livestock farmers, are focusing too much on mitigation through trees and not mitigation through efficiency, no mitigation through improving feeding management. So their argument is that when we are quantifying emissions, we have a factor by the cows, right? So the carbon sequestration is through another sector that we are capturing it. So that is a recommendation always, that we have to focus first on how efficiencies is going to reduce emission, and then how intervention as tree can compensate the remaining emissions of the farm. In here, that is a list of technologies that is promoted in Honduras. As you see, we have 3 categories here: silvopastoral system, right? And all the options of silvopastoral system, management strategies, and all the options which help you to improve productivity. Sometimes when you have a project that only concentrates on silvopastoral system because of the high opportunity cost of farmer might not be willing. For me, it's much better to invest in a cow rather than invest in a portion of tree. And the other one is infrastructure. What is important is that when we are intervening farmers and we have that set of technology, we have to do a diagnosis. We have to do that extension component, go with the farmer, right? Teach them, at the same time, select the low carbon intervention, right? And that is where incentive come, what you were saying before, right? So I need to provide them with certain type of incentive so they can adapt, because technical capacity, building capacity is not enough, right? So is that loan sufficiently soft for the farmer? Do we have other incentive? What are the market incentives? So we have to create all that. And important also to end up with the monitoring and so on. In Costa Rica, the list is even longer because they have a long time doing sustainable livestock, more than other countries. And they have well-structured package of technology, pasture management, silvopastoral system, forest plantation. It's interesting because in the beginning, farmers were adopting a lot of silvopastoral system because the government had some payment for environmental services, and that encouraged farmers a lot. For that reason, we pick up adoption. Forage bank, silage is important. Equipment, concentrate hay. Something that is very important is how to teach people about how to manage their farm. And that is key, because in those projects, most of the problem is that those farmers usually do not see their farm as a business, right? They see that So in Costa Rica, they concentrate a lot on teaching farmers how to model, how to manage their farm as a business. Final observation, conclusion, and with that I finish. Livestock, as you know, is a significant contributor of global warming, but also is part of the solution, Bruno, right? We all agree on that, and we have to tell everybody that we are part of the solution, not only the problem. And big opportunity to establish tourism farm, and tourism farm, as Bruno was saying, is favoring production, increasing carbon above and below ground. Changing feeding strategy is important because I need to change the emission factors. Intensification, because we have too much extensive livestock, and it's important to release area for diversification. Production of timber, fruit production is important. However, as we were saying before, technical assistance, capacity building, policy changes, incentive, financial mechanism, all of them have to be within a package in order for farmers adapt progressively. Thank you so much. And with that, thank you and questions. Okay.
Thanks for the presentation. Kind of curious about how much you might know about genetic improvements, and is that primarily aimed at trying to increase productivity as a way of trying to decrease emissions, or is it also aimed at different, like, are there any genetic specific markers aimed at that?
So what people are doing, especially in Costa Rica, is, and indeed there is a very important project run by the ministry, is how I'm going to improve genetic in a way that I can adapt my herd toward the changing climate, right? In the beginning, a farm that we monitor, they had Jersey a long time ago. And they said, okay, the temperature is changing. So they are changing they had a program like 10 years crossing, identifying which is the best breed that adapt to the environment. You see, it's not related to how can I breed cow for carbon reductions. It's about how do I breed the cow so they can adapt better to the condition I have. Because farmers in the past, they committed the mistake of buying cows because they were coming from America, because they were coming from a farmer that produced a lot, but he is in low line and the cow was coming from the island. So yeah, you see those mistakes a lot. Yeah, and I see they are using breed from Australia, some breed from Australia, which are, yeah. So I don't know too much about genetic, but that is what I know. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll be presenting next, so I'll time myself. Give me a minute. Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Jose Lopez. I'm an associate professor of agribusiness at Texas A&M Commerce, and I will be changing the focus here in this presentation from sustainability to market prices and analysis. So I'll be presenting a hedonic analysis of cattle prices in Nicaragua. Okay. This is the work of a former student, Mr. Jemson Augustine. He is a former student of mine. He did a master thesis with us, and now he joined University of Georgia. And so other contributors from the University of Missouri, Irving Leiva, helped gather the data. And Dr. Baktaborian, a committee member. So Latin American is the leading region in the world in terms of beef and poultry exports, emphasis on exports here. Together, Latin American and the Caribbean, they account for 13.5% of the world population, but they produce 21.4% of of poultry and 23% of beef. That's globally. Despite progress in Latin America, the region faces several challenges, and these are challenges that may be common to other regions as well, which are high cost of animal feed, low productivity, and increasing risk of transboundary pests and diseases. So this picture, figure 1, shows you beef production, consumption, exports, and imports in Central America. As you can see, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Guatemala, all those 6 countries are Central America. And you can see in the picture that Nicaragua leads in terms of beef production and beef exports. This presentation will focus on Nicaragua, okay? So just to give you an idea, if in case you're wondering where that is, Central America, you can see Nicaragua there highlighted in red, and is the countries in Central America, Guatemala, then Honduras, El Salvador, a small country there, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. Okay. So Nicaragua ranks 13th worldwide in terms of beef exports, and is also the leader for Central America. Central America emphasis here. Nicaragua consumes only 10.7% of what they produce, and then the rest is exported. They consume very little and mostly export. The cattle industry is the 3rd major component of GDP in Nicaragua, accounts for 10% of the GDP, okay? And then the largest component is services and follows by manufacturing. Land for cattle production in Nicaragua is underutilized. The country has the record lowest cattle production density in Central America. South America may be different, as Bruno was emphasizing, you know, Uruguay, big country. And so 2.82 cows per acre is the lowest in Central America. Nicaragua has the lowest. These are due to mainly property right disputes. So basically, land that belongs to people that they don't, unfortunately, due to political instability, has fallen into other people's hands, and then their property right disputes and cannot be put into use. That decreases confidence to invest in the country, right? And in agriculture. Just to give you an idea, 35% of all land in Nicaragua is subject to conflicting ownership claims. Based on the growth trends, then, if you see the exports are increasing, so therefore what that means is that unfortunately then we may get into deforestation, because if the property land is under dispute and is growing, unless efficiency is increased, otherwise then we may get into deforestation. So what we're doing in this study is that we were trying to basically come up with a model that will help cattle ranchers in Nicaragua to know what physical and lot characteristics are earning premiums for cattle buyers. We're going to quantify intrinsic and extrinsic factors that shape cattle prices in Nicaragua. A specific objective was to come up with a suitable model, estimate premiums and discounts, and analyze the extent to which future prices are related to cash prices. So I'm going to come back to that later on. The literature review. So we are doing a hedonic model. It falls into the hedonic model type of analysis, and that is not new. It has been around since the early 1900s, and basically hedonic pricing models estimate prices of commodities based on a specific quality attributes of the animals, of course. Cattle are usually sold through auctions, markets, where prices are based on genetic, management, market, and marketing factors, right? The literature review suggested that there are 2 approaches for analyzing feeder cattle: the basis, which is futures minus cash, and the bid price approach. Okay, in this study, we adopted the basis approach. Factors affecting cash prices basically can be summarized into 2 categories:
intrinsic and extrinsic factors. Just to give you examples, intrinsic, internal, extrinsic, external, right? So in hedonic modeling, a good worth of the analysis depends on the individual physical characteristics of the animals, right? But market forces and market characteristics impact the value of those attributes. The basic hedonic model as a function of cattle characteristic, you can see basically is price is a function of physical characteristic and market characteristics. What we did is that we use ordinary least square regression to estimate that model there. The dependent variable is basis, and the dependent variable is basis, and the independent variables you have there physical, and then dummy physical characteristics and dummy variables for seasonality for the different month. This is from the literature review, what signs to expect for the parameters, and it's all well documented. And so, okay, so the data that we obtained was from Comer Gaza. Comer Gaza is the second largest livestock auction in Nicaragua. Okay, the largest is Sugarne, and the third largest is La Chontaleña. Suganar is the largest. Suganar, Comer Gaza is the second. So we're going with the second in this study, second largest. Compared to the United States, the requirements to sell at those auctions is simpler, far much simpler. We estimated the model. We started with 3,200 observations, but then because we had a longer period, we have 4 years initially, but then we were missing observations for certain months, so we ended up focusing on 2017 and 2018, and with 2,500 observations. And we also obtained data from the CME group with for the futures prices. Here are the results. You see, a lot of the parameters obtained the expected sign, and they were statistically significant at less than 1% probability. In fact, at less than 0.1% probability, except for the two that are highlighted in red. Those were not significant, but everything else was significant. And here, the next, I want to show you some of the relationships that you can do with the model. So for example, the figure 2 here shows you that the optimal lot size is 48 animals. And then figure 3 shows you that you get the largest discount when the weight is around 612 pounds. This is in Nicaragua, okay? The next figure, figure 4, basically you can appreciate here how the season plays a role. The rainy season begins in June and ends in mid-November. So that's where you get all the discounts, because in Nicaragua it's mostly fed with grass-fed. And so if when it's the rainy season, a lot of rain, a lot of feed, grass-fed. And so basically animals get discounted because you're able to put more weight. And then in the dry season, which is from December to May, before June to May, that's when they get hard to put weight on the animal, so you get premiums in that. And then if you table 3 here shows you the average weight in the corresponding season, and also the price they expect during the season. Okay, so I'm doing great with time here. Basically, I'm gonna go ahead and conclude. The model, we had a lot of the variables were statistically significant, except for those 2 that I mentioned earlier. The basis model obtained, we did both. We did the basis, and we did the one where the dependent variable is not basis, but you use just cash price as the dependent variable. And the model was better when we used the basis model. As you can see there, the R-square was higher. Now, if you go back to the previous figure here, this figure also tells you that, well, in that case, in that January was the baseline, but the best months to sell was March, and the worst month to sell is September. And we hope that the results of our analysis will help producers understand how the information from the futures market, can be used to predict prices and reduce uncertainty. So basically, once you have the model, you can predict the basis that will give them an idea of what prices to get for producers, Nicaraguan producers. Okay. As you saw in my model, I did not have a breed variable, and that's one of the limitations, because the data sheets we were able to work with didn't come with a breed variable. So basically, we did not include breeds. That's the nature of the data, but future research would be interesting to do that. And then also for future research, perhaps a cost benefit or profitability analysis to determine, the profitability, if it's worth investing in a specific quality attributes. Now, in the literature review, we found that in Nicaragua, women are often excluded from programs. So one of the recommendations is that a gender inclusive approach must be adopted. That may be the nature in the cattle business, but our recommendation is to adopt a gender inclusive approach. And then there's a lot of potential for Nicaragua when it comes to value added programs. Value added, like, if you advertise like grass fed meat, organic meat, there's a lot of potential for that in Nicaragua. And with that, I conclude my presentation.
So we have and one reels is like
And that was not me. But I welcome any questions, or and I'll do my best to answer. That's not me. No, that's not my phone. I'm not using it in my phone. I cannot see who is participating though either, but yeah, that's most likely what it is. Anyways, okay, questions. Thank you. Bruno.
How homogeneous or not are the environmental and weather, soils, conditions? But when we did you consider to put some variables on that side, for example, soils, that have
Yeah.
relation with the fashion and heating and the weather, weather conditions, extreme weather conditions, things like that?
So the data we use, it was from the Comergasa livestock auction. They are sales data. So they record their sales using data sales sheets, and no, you are not able to tell there. Well, we cannot backtrack the animals that are sold at the auction. So therefore, but I can tell you that Nicaragua, there's a slight difference. The north of the country is drier than the capital. Managua is a lot of humid, and south of Nicaragua is also more wet. But the north, Chinandega, all the north is drier. A lot of cattle is produced in the north than in the south of the country. But just to give you an idea, Nicaragua has about 45 inches annual rainfall, 45 inches, which I was looking, and it's about, in California, it fluctuates. There are some very dry years that only get like 10 inches, around 10 or in the tens. And then there are some years like online, they were saying that 2017, they got about 40 inches of rain. So kind of in 2017 is similar to what Nicaragua gets, but Nicaragua gets it continuously because it's in the tropic, a lot of rainfall. And the soil is very fertile. I wouldn't be able to, but it's not. So in Texas it's sandy soil. In Nicaragua is more like volcanic, a lot of, so it's very good soil for agriculture. Yes, ma'am.
How accessible are supplements and other it reasonable for an average producer to take advantage of that higher price?
So, is it reasonable for producers to take advantage of the what?
The high price during the drought?
Okay, very good. So I understand your question now. Okay, in Nicaragua, mostly, I would venture to say that grass-fed is the primary input. We don't grow we grow corn and other grains that you can feed the animals, but mostly it's grass-fed because it's so abundant and a lot of rain, a lot of grass. One of the challenges I mentioned was that is high cost of feed in Latin America. And I think that is because once you try to feed the animals with grains, that's where it becomes very expensive. So to answer your question, I would say that it's probably very challenging to grow more animals, and that's why the premiums are there for. But for an exporter point of view, you know, US or a US importer that is trying to bring meat into the United States. The United States is the primary market for Nicaragua. A lot of the meat comes to the United States. That's the primary market. And then the other market is El Salvador, which is also Central American country. But El Salvador is like a trade country. They buy a lot of different commodities from the region and then they export it themselves. So a lot of the exports to El Salvador, I wouldn't be surprised they end up in the United States as well. And the other destination is Venezuela. And Venezuela may be because of a good political relationship between the two countries. I'm going to venture to say that, but I'm not for sure. Yeah, Nicaragua, Venezuela have kind of the same type of political orientation as of it is, you know. But that doesn't mean that's not related to the people. That's related to the situation. I think I kind of work around your question. Yes, yes.
I have two questions. My apologies for not being focused on the model, but my understanding is the industry has grown a fair amount in the last decade or so. I wanted to ask if you tell us a little bit about that, and then also the relationship between the government and the private sector, and the sector, and how you would characterize that, what the government may have done to support the sector.
I can tell you that there are some programs, but I don't want to get myself say something into a situation that I may regret later. So I'm gonna tell you that the Nicaraguan government is considered, I think, with the current president, is a communist party, and so it's kind of dictator communist party that is in power, and so the president pretty much makes most of the decisions for the country. The president has a lot of investments into the companies and the companies and the industries that are doing well. The president would be involved, would be an investor, because you know, if he's doing well, that would be something he wants to invest. The president have been in power there was a revolution in the 80s. He won the power. Then he was taken out of power in the 90s. We went back to democracy from the 90s to close to the 2000. About 3 presidents went by, different presidents. The period is 5 years of presidency, different from the United States, 4 years. It was changed to 5 years because the current president came back to power, and there were a few things that were changed too. It used to be that no president could run for more than 2 periods, right? Like in the United States, it's changed now to indefinitely. And so the answer to your question is how is the relationship? I think with the current largest producers is probably a good relationship. I don't have enough information to give you more details, but I would think that they have to be in good standing with the president. Otherwise, otherwise you cannot produce.
The growth export really noticeable.
It is really not noticeable. In Nicaragua, yes. I'll tell you something that this is go back to 2017, 2018, the analysis. Recently, there was are we good, Samuel, in time? I gotta probably stop. But I'll tell you that there was a recent attempt by the people, Nicaraguan people, to have him removed, and things go bad in Nicaragua, and we went back. That was back in not too long ago, and so the GDP and production was affected, but it's coming back up. But with the current president. Samuel, I think you have about 25 minutes left. Thank you.
So it's not changing. How do you change the?
First time you do it, clicking on the, you have a next button on the screen.
No.
That's it. But the second time you do it, you're able to. The first time you have to click here. Oh, once
So
you
it's,
do, once you do it,
I already have full screen there, but
where's the map? Where's the? Oh, okay. Is it full screen here?
yeah,
Slideshow, full screen
it's already full
from
screen.
current
On the beginning.
from the beginning.
Oh, there we go. It's working now.
This one.
Well, good morning. My name is Samuel Zapata. I'm an associate professor at Texas A&M University, and I'm working on this with David Anderson, my colleague, and trying to make some sense of some data that we have and trying to analyze it in a kind of like a different way compared to the traditional hedonic analysis that Jose present. The data is not from Latin America, it's from Texas. However, as I will show you, there is a growing interest in doing hedonic analysis in Latin America, so that might have some implication for the region. So before going to the model, I think it is important to define heterogeneous goods, and those are those goods that are similar in many ways, but at the same time, they are different in any attributes or functions. So different examples, you have cattle, as Jose mentioned, but also you have coffee, you have tractors, and other things that have the same function, however, they are different. So there are some characteristics of those goods or products. The first one is that the price and the cost of produce them is also tends to be different, because some attributes are associated with a different set of prices. Other thing is that they tend to be substitutes, because they have more or less the same function, the same use, and they are traded typically at the same market. So one example again is cattle. As you can see, we have different color, different breeds, different marketing values that are, as I mentioned, result in premiums or discounts. So the typical, again, just to refer to the work that Jose did, is that the typical way to analyze auction prices is through a hedonic analysis, where price is equal to a function of the different attributes, and the attributes can be the attributes of the animal, also the attributes of, like I say, marketing practices that were implemented into the animal. And then as a producer, you have the option to control some of the attributes, saying, for example, the weight. You can more or less define the weight at sale. However, there are other attributes that are fixed or harder to change in the short run. For example, the color of an animal. If you have a black animal, when you buy them, it will be black when you sell it, okay? So there are some limitations of the hedonic analysis, and some of the limitation is that typically the premiums and discounts are not generally applicable to all the animals, because there may be some unobserved factors that prevents some potential combinations. So for example, you cannot create an animal yielding all premiums attributes. So for some reason, it may be the case that it is not possible to assemble an animal with all the good attributes. So for that reason, the premiums estimated with the hedonic analysis, you cannot say that are for every animal. That's one thing. And the other thing also, Jose mentioned that one, is that it doesn't consider the cost benefit of changing the attributes. So if I change one attribute from another one, the hedonic analysis, you only do the analysis at the price level without considering the potential margins. Okay. And the other thing, that the last bullet there, that is the one that we are more interested in, is you have the prices. However, you don't know the efficiency of those prices. So probably by doing some management practices, you could achieve a higher price. So what's the efficiency between the price you get versus the highest possible price that you can get by implementing feasible management practices? So those things are unknown, and that's the motivation of the analysis. So basically, the goal of the analysis is to develop a benchmark methodology where we are trying to assess the price and profit efficiency of cattle auction prices in Texas, where you can see here, we define efficiency basically on the top, on the numerator. You have the price that you receive given the set of attributes, and divided by the maximum possible price that you can get by changing some of the attributes. And those changes, again, has to be feasible, because it is not possible to just saying, okay, all the premium yielding attributes. So that's not the case. So by doing that, you can also identify the required changes to get from the original set of qualities to the optimal set of qualities that will yield the optimum feasible price. So that's basically the idea. So just to illustrate the idea, you see we have price on the will be the vertical axis, and saying the level of the attribute on the x-axis. So you see we have an efficient frontier. So basically, you see you have the observed price that will give you for the level of attribute, saying holding everything constant or holding everything as it is, what's the maximum price that you can get? So the idea is to move from the price that you receive if you are not efficient to how can you get to the highest possible price. Okay, so by reaching the efficient frontier, you have two things. Basically, the first one is that you know the change on each attribute that needs to be made to reach the efficient frontier. That will be an horizontal movement. And then on the vertical axis, you also see by doing this change, what's the expected gain in price that I will receive by changing the attributes of my animal. So that's basically the whole idea. So in order to estimate that frontier, we use a principle of data envelopment analysis, that basically trying to estimate a non-parametric function and try to see how each observation, how close each observation is from the efficient frontier. So we use that for both price and profits. And by doing that, we estimate what we call the ECU, or the efficient composite unit, that basically is the optimal animal for that particular animal that you are studying. So basically that will be the animal with the optimal combination of attributes, given those fixed attributes that you cannot basically change. So for that, we are proposing a unique set of optimization constraints to take into consideration the inherent attributes of the cattle animals. Particularly, some of the attributes of the cattle are continuous, like weight, but also you have discrete attributes, saying, for example, if an animal has horns or not. And then some of those decisions can be controllable, means that as a farmer, you have the option to manipulate those levels, but there are others, for example, as I mentioned, market prices, stock price, future prices, those are given, so you cannot have an impact on those. So basically with that, that's in a sketch formulation of the problem for the price oriented. So we are trying to maximize the price, the maximum price that's equivalent to minimizing the efficiency, given a set of constraints for both discrete and continuous variable, as well for fixed and exogenous, fixed or endogenous variable. So the idea basically is try to find a similar animal with a higher price under worse market conditions. Okay, so if I can get a price, if somebody else could get a better price than me under worse overall market condition, that means that I was not efficient in a sense of marketing my animal. So that will be for price. For profit is very similar, with the only difference is that you need to estimate the cost of each animal. So we are assuming that the cost of producing an animal is also variable, and it depends on the attributes of the animal. So we use a very simple cost function, where basically we fix all the animals at the given weight. And I think we are using 450 pounds. So all of them start at 450 pounds, and they end at the weight at sale, and whatever the weight was. So we have the first part of the equation basically will tell us the price of buying that animal at 400 pounds, and then the cost of bringing that animal, that stocker cattle, to the final weight, given the average daily weight gain. That there are plenty of articles that have demonstrated that the efficiency of gaining weight is affected by the attributes or the characteristics of the animal. So in that sense, then we have at least an estimate of what is the cost, or at least the expected cost of each of the animal. So for the empirical application, we use individual cattle sales in South and East Texas. We have, I think, over 6,000 observations from 12 markets. Data was collected from 2014 up to date. However, I decided not to include the last years due to COVID that may not represent traditional markets. And then we divide or stratify the analysis based on the weight of the animal. So basically different through the production supply chain. And for the purpose of the presentation, we're gonna focus on the animals between 500 to 750 and 50 pounds. At the bottom, you see some of the characteristics that we are recording at each of the auction sales. So this is the map of Texas. We have basically, those are the 12 markets where we are collecting data, and we define or divide the markets between South market, 6 markets in the South, and other 6 markets on the East. Then this graph basically just tells us how do we divide the different attributes of the animal between discrete and continuous attributes. between controllable attributes and fixed attributes. So the idea is to those that are endogenous, those are the ones that we think that the rancher could change the level of that attribute before the sale day, and in that way, it could target a better price given the set of fixed characteristics. So for market conditions, we use feeder and live cattle prices, as well as corn and soybean meal prices as a proxy for feed costs. Okay. This is the data, a visual representation of the data. Each dot there represents at least one transaction. You have the price on the vertical axis, and on the horizontal axis, the time. And you can see we start collecting data when prices used to be relatively higher, 2014, 2015. And after that, prices are going down. So it is important to consider external factor like market prices, because the same animal could be sold during different times, during good or bad market conditions. So it won't be fair. We cannot say that the animal at the bottom is inefficient because it didn't get the higher price, but because there are other fixed factors. So we need to compare, to make a fair comparison, has to be under same or worse market conditions. So that's the idea. So let's just to start in the presentation, this is an example for a random animal that I picked. So basically you see the first column, the set of controllable characteristics, those characteristics that as a rancher you can modify before auction. Then the original is for that particular animal that was a heifer. And you can see the field condition was not good, was a strong, body condition was thin. And then the price ECU, that basically is to bring that animal to the efficient frontier. Those are the characteristics associated with the animal at the efficient frontier. So you can see that basically the field condition changed from strong to average for both price and profit, and the body condition from thin to average. And you see here outside are basically those external conditions that cannot be modified. So those are given those fixed conditions, how can you improve prices? And you see at the bottom, you see the efficiency. Basically, for that particular animal has an efficiency of 87%. So it's like 13 units from the frontier in terms of price, and the profit efficiency is of 68%. Okay, perfect. So that's for one particular animal. So the idea is that for the over 6,000 observations, we did the same analysis. And when you group all the observation, basically that's the distribution you have for all of them. So basically for that particular group, sorry, because we are only limited to the animals between 500 to 750 pounds. For that range, we had 2,600 observations, and out of those 2,600, about 40% were inefficient. It means that they were not, by doing some feasible changes on the animal, the producer could have received, in theory, a higher price. And you see, for example, on average, the price efficiency is 88%, and the profit efficiency is 64%. The histogram at the bottom are the distribution of the efficiency of only the inefficient observation, those animals that have an efficiency of less than 1, because to be efficient, you have to be 1. If you are less than 1, it means that how far you are from the efficient frontier. And you can see it was kind of surprised, but to me, they look like a very smooth distribution of the inefficiency, which make me think about really if there is something that creates those, like an intrinsic function that creates those inefficiency in a way that they behave in a very, very smooth pattern. So, and the other thing, just to finalize this one at the bottom, you see the price increase. So on average, price could be increased by 15%. So by bringing the animal, each animal to the efficient frontier, on average, farmers could receive 50% higher price, and profit could be increased by 68%. The other thing that we did is try to contrast the price efficiency to the profit efficiency. And you see on the vertical axis, we have the profit efficiency score. On the x-axis, we have the price efficiency score. And what it is interested is that you can see that animals in the top of right corner top, those are the efficient animals. And you see that about 80% of the animals that are within the highest 20 quintile in prices, they are not necessarily efficient. So for example, let's see this one is very close to be price efficient. However, in terms of profit, it is very inefficient. So it makes sense to educate farmers that typically don't go for higher prices. You need to go for higher profit margins, because as you can see, you can be really close to the optimal price, however, far away from the optimal profit level. And with that, just some studies that I found. Is not a comprehensive list of studies that has been done in Latin America. And you see basically the countries that we have been discussing today. I was expecting to see some more studies from Argentina, given the size of the industry, but I couldn't find any hedonic analysis in Argentina, but there are some from Uruguay, the study that Jose did in Nicaragua, as well some studies from Brazil. And it is interesting that you can see the publication dates. Those are recent studies. So it seems that this type of analysis that Jose is doing, other people in the region will also start. In here, as Jose mentioned, with the literature review in the US, they has been done for last 40 years, but it seems that in Latin America is a new area of, you see that it is growing. So just to conclude, summary conclusion, we are proposing a data-driven method to estimate the efficiency in cattle sales. However, this methodology can be extended to any heterogeneous good. We found that 40% of the animals are inefficient, and profits could be increased by, price could be increased by 16%, and profits could be increased by 69% just by implementing feasible marketing practices. And then with that, also we can use the model to provide or try to analyze what are the recommendations to improve those prices. With that, I will conclude. I think we are on time. And if we have any questions, comments, thank you for the opportunity.
We have time for about one. So if there's 69% for potential to increase profit, is that essentially what is the manager, what's the trade that they could be increased? Weight, for example?
Weight is the main one. Yeah, but however, the frontier basically cheap with the discrete characteristics. It can go up or down. So weight will move you, but through the frontier. But however, if you want to get higher or lower, there are other characteristics. But yeah, the main one is weight that you can change. The farmers can change the weight to target a higher price or a higher profit level.
So it sometimes isn't the idea that they could be selling too early, like they should be fattening their cattle more before the cost.
Yes. When we analyzed the data, we found that the thing is that sometimes also, at least the farmers that have been in conversation with, they try to focus on the price per pound. However, if you focus on the price per head, you will see a different pattern. And at the end of the day, the profit are per head. So yeah, there is no, probably Jose mentioned a graph where there is an optimal weight per pound. But if you multiply that per head, it is a different price. But yeah. Yes, Felipe.
Can you explain the intuition behind the synthetic cost that you created? What is the intuition behind it?
Remember that when we collect data, we only collect price data and the set of attributes for that price. We don't know what was the cost. However, the cost, because the efficiency that you see the average daily gain changed by the breed that of the animal, the color, say for example, in South Texas, a black animal will spend more energy, you see, just releasing heat or compared to a light animal. So those have an impact on the conversion rate. So if you can also create a function that a cost that is a function of the attributes, then at the least you can have a proxy of the cost, so you can do the extend the analysis at the profit level. So that was the reason of the cost. So in a sense, so for example, it can be saying putting 10 more pounds can give you higher price, but probably the cost of doing that, it doesn't work to put 10, only 7 or 5. So that was.
We're out of time.
I don't.
I guess we are good to go now. We are dismissed, but you're welcome to keep the conversation with well, if you feel there's something that interests you at this time. We have